And I never wanted any kid to feel like that. So I would see those burned out teachers who'd be like, yeah, 5 years away from my pension. And they're, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to, if I can't, deliver 1,000%, then I have to walk away. So that's why, and that's why I eventually did. And now I can. So now the students that I have now through my own business, I can deliver like 10,000%. And I love that. I absolutely love that. That's why I became a teacher in the first place.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping educators like yourself navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Shaun Morgan, a full-time teacher and entrepreneur, and I'm here to help teachers navigate everything related to your money. Whether you have questions about budgeting on a teacher's salary, managing student loans, increasing your income, or making the most of your benefits, I'm here to make money less confusing, more empowering, and a tool you can use to focus on what matters most. So whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things money related. So if you're ready to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life, let's dive in. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. I'm so excited to have Kelly Dharamshi here on our show. It's just going to be so much fun to talk to her. Kelly is a full-time tutor, recently exited teaching, and she tutors with Kelly's Reading Club. That's her business. And she also runs a podcast, YouTube channel, and a group on Facebook for teachers called Tutor Hustle for Teachers. So I'm so excited to talk to Kelly today. Kelly, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really excited because of what you've told me about your story already, and I want to hear the whole thing. So can you just share a bit about your background in teaching and what led you to pursue a career in education in the first place?
Sure. Well, I started teaching 20 years ago. Actually, yeah, this school year would have been my 21st year, I believe. So this September is the first year I haven't gone back to teaching. And I started teaching 20 years ago. I wanted to become a teacher because when I was a kid at school, I was really like kind of the oddball kid, and I was really, the one that sat in the corner. The teacher was like, "Oh no, she's in my class," and I felt really like kind of misunderstood by all the teachers. So I said, I'm going to become a teacher and I'm just going to do it so much better. I'm going to change the system and I'm going to make sure all the kids feel included and special and great. And of course, you can't change the system. I learned after 20 long years, the system is pretty much intact. You can do your best on a personal level to make all the kids feel like included and great in your class, and try to make the experience as wonderful for them as possible. And that's what I did. But after a while, I started to get really burnt out just by a lot of things. Like I was teaching special ed for many years, and the kids had really a lot of needs that they needed to have met to not only optimize their education and give them the best experience possible, but also to just maintain their safety and like dignity every day at school. And we didn't have the resources for that a lot of times. So it was like just a lot of extra work and like constantly, digging miracles out and trying to make things happen. And it just, after a while, it just really started to burn me out. So in February of, oh gosh, now I can't remember how many years ago it was, but not that long ago, but I think it was 2019. I was like really done. I was teaching a kindergarten class for kids with special needs, and it was a very active class. So I was physically constantly like going. And it was like, COVID was still around, and there was all these restrictions that we had to abide by, and it was which made things, which I mean, obviously we had to protect our health, but it made things even more stressful. And especially because my kids were like they didn't even know how to use Kleenexes or anything. So it was tough. And anyway, so after one day, I was just so stressed out. I was like done. I said, I can't do this anymore. Something has to give. I can't do it. And that day when I was walking home from school, I fell on the ice. It was February. I live in Canada, so it's icy. I fell on the ice and I broke my wrist. And the second I felt the bone snap, the first thing that came in my head was, oh, good, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. And I was like, okay, this is a major wake up call. If I'm getting excited about breaking my bones so I don't have to go to work, I think it's time for a change. So that I finished out that year. And then the following year, I took a leave of absence, an unpaid leave of absence, and I was determined to find a new career. I was like, I can't go back to teaching. I'm done with it. And while I was not getting paid, I said, okay, let me start tutoring because all I really know how to do is teach, right? I said, let me start tutoring just to make a little bit of extra money till I find some kind of new career. And I love tutoring. It was like the best thing ever. And so I said, this is going to be it for me. This is going to be my new career. So then from that point on, I slowly started to build my tutoring business and exit teaching. And it didn't happen overnight. It was like a step-by-step process. But in December, this past December, I was able to fully resign, and now I tutor full time and do what I love.
Awesome. Oh man, I've never broken my wrist, but I can definitely empathize with the yay, I broke my wrist. I don't have to go to work tomorrow feeling. That is sad that a lot of teachers would feel that way. It'd be like, oh, I have an excuse not to be there. Because it almost feels like you need an excuse not to go back to work as a teacher. You're like, oh, but I'd have to get a sub, and oh, it's so bad. So like, I'm not going to take care of my own health because I have to get a sub, and I don't want to do that. And it's just all the issues that we have with stepping away from the classroom, or oh, but the kids need me, right? We have these things we tell ourselves, and then we burn ourselves out to the point where when you break your wrist, you're like, I don't have to feel guilty because my wrist is broken. I can leave, right? Oh man, that's rough, but I totally get it. So you were struggling through this, and that just really pushed you to leave this stable job, but you opted for entrepreneurship. So you made it sound like that was an accident to get into entrepreneurship. Can you tell us what led you to stick with that instead of looking for a different stable career?
Really good question, actually, and it's something I ask myself. This is my cat, by the way. He's gonna join us. It's something that I ask myself still today. I'm like, what? Why didn't I just get another job? But for some reason, I think at heart I am an entrepreneur. So I think I've always been one, but I just kind of buried it under the whole notion of getting a nice stable job, and teaching where I live is like it's a really stable job. You get where I live here in Ontario, Canada. You get paid fairly well. Like, now you're never going to get paid enough. I'm not going to say teachers get paid enough, because if baseball players are making like $30 million a year, then teachers are not getting paid enough. But we get paid, comparatively across North America, we get paid fairly well. And we have the pension and you have benefits, and like it's like a government job, so it's really stable. So I was just kind of always like, okay, I have to have this safe job, and I would put all my energy into it. And then but I always dreamed of being an entrepreneur, to tell you the truth. Like, I always would, like read books about entrepreneurialism, and like read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I love that book. And like think about, side hustles and what can I do to kind of make my own money. Like, is it as if this teaching paycheck wasn't my own money? You know what I mean? And so I always had that in me. So I think that once I kind of fell into tutoring, and I knew that was what I wanted to do, I also knew that I had to do it on my own, because one of the biggest problems I had teaching in the classroom was that I never felt free to really just teach and like deliver, what the kids needed, because I could see sort of what was needed, and I could never fully do that. You know what I mean? So I wanted to be able to serve the kids at the highest level and really like give them the instruction and the education that they needed. And I knew the only way I could do that was on my own. I actually did investigate opening up a franchise, like a tutoring center franchise. And right on the sales call, I was like, no, this does not feel right. It just does not, it's not that there's anything wrong with it. Like people are very successful with it and it's a great option. But for me, I was like, no, I have to do my own program. I have to teach in my own way. And so that's how I came upon starting my own business.
I totally empathize with that as well. Starting your own business. My wife always makes fun of me. She says, "You tricked me. You told me I was marrying a teacher, not an entrepreneur." She's always telling me that because I always like, I had this great idea. I'm going to start this business. She's like, not again. So it's just it's something that there's some people that really have it in them, and if you don't have that in you, that's totally fine. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, but there are a lot of benefits to being an entrepreneur. So you had to start this business. You weren't making any money. How did you prepare for this financially? Did you have financial considerations that you were worried about, or did you have something that was going to help you be able to do this? Year off that you took. Like, how did you prepare for this?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of financial considerations and I was really worried. Like I was, I probably wanted to leave teaching for I'd say 10 years before I actually did leave. And it just got progressively, that desire to leave was getting progressively stronger and stronger and stronger. But and the reason why I didn't, and even the last few years was really tough, but I was terrified to even think about leaving because I didn't know where I would make that much money at, like anywhere, like what other job was going to pay me that much money, what else. I don't even know how to do anything else. Like I said, all I really know how to do is teach. And I know that many of those skills are transferable into other jobs, but I didn't know how to find them, or like I didn't know what to do. So I was really scared for many years to leave or even think about leaving. And then when I took that year off, uh was I financially prepared for it? Probably not as well as I could have been, but fortunately for me, I'm not the only person in my household that earns an income. So I know that, and that's, I'm very fortunate for that, because if I was, then it would probably be a totally different story. But so I took a bit of a risk there, and so far it's been good. It's like it's paid off. I won't say that I have matched my full-time teaching salary with tutoring yet, but it's moving in that direction, and and it takes time. But I certainly do make enough money to live on, like to contribute to my family, and that we can live, um comfortably. So far, knock on wood, we'll continue in that direction.
I love a lot of things that you just said in there. That was fantastic. Sometimes you're not prepared, and sometimes you'll never be prepared unless you go out and make yourself prepared, right? I love how you also have this mindset. You said, I haven't replaced my income yet. Yet is a beautiful word. You will get there, right? You haven't replaced it yet, but you will get there. So if you're worried, like, well, I won't be able to make as much money, just throw that word in yet. You can bootstrap it. You can survive on a little bit less money for a year, maybe two, as you build it up, and you can make it for sure. That is definitely a huge thing. And then lastly, I want to emphasize this. You said you wanted to leave teaching for 10 years, and that to me is tragic. That we have teachers, many teachers, who wish they could leave. Now, I think we need to do a lot to make it so teachers don't want to leave. But if you are in a position where you financially can't leave, but you want to, you are kind of hurting the students as much as you're hurting yourself, right? Because you don't want to be there. You're not giving it your all, right? It's really not a good situation. And trust me, your coworkers can tell. We've all met that teacher who has gotten to that point where they're like, yeah, I'm just here because my pension kicks in 3 years. Don't want to be here at all. right? And that's sad that we have to do that. So that's why we prepare financially, because if we're prepared financially for whatever happens in the future, if we're putting money aside, if we are growing a side hustle to or increase our retirement contributions or whatever it is we're doing, when we get to that point, if you had done 10 years of teaching and you're preparing the whole time, and you get to that point in 10 years where you're like, you know what, I don't really want to do this anymore, being able to just walk away like that because you're prepared financially is going to be so much better for your mental health and for the overall, the students as well, because you won't have to go through the slog where you don't want to be there anymore. So that's huge. That's one of my number one reasons why I want teachers to be able to be financially prepared, is because I don't want you to have to hold on when it's not helping anybody.
Yeah, that's true. And I see the majority of my colleagues, well, maybe not the majority, but depending on what school I was teaching at, some were better than others, but many colleagues were there just for the pension and just for the, like waiting it out till it was over. And I didn't want to be that teacher. If I couldn't give my all to the kids and everything that I had and really make it the best possible experience for them, because I remember what it was like when I was a kid and I was like sitting in the corner and I knew the teacher didn't like me and it was a horrible feeling, and I never wanted any kid to feel like that. So I would see those burned out teachers who'd be like, yeah, 5 years away from my pension, and they're, and I was like, oh my god, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to, if I can't deliver 1,000%, then I have to walk away. So that's why, and that's why I eventually did. And now I can. So now the students that I have now through my own business, I can deliver like 10,000%. And I love that. I absolutely love that. That's why I became a teacher in the first place.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
someone's feeling the way that you did when you wanted to leave, what advice would you give them as they're preparing to make that step?
You know what? I would say that you like don't be scared. Um, it kind of depends on how much you are making as a teacher as well. Because if you're already not making that much, like if I would have thought of this earlier in my career when I was making, like 30,000 to 40,000 dollars a year when I first started out, it would have been much easier to walk away because it's not a lot of money. But I was making a lot of money when I when I left. Actually, I was like at the top end of my career, and I was making over 100,000 Canadian here in Ontario, and I don't want people to freak out and be like, "Oh my God, teachers are making $100,000 a year," because they're not all okay. That was after like a lot of experience, a lot of education, you know, that a lot of time went into that, and it took a lot of time to climb that salary ladder and get to that point. So it's not like you just out of the gate from teachers college making that much money, and if very few teachers actually do make that much money even here where I live. So that's another reason why I was like, I can't leave, because I'm at the top of the salary, I can't leave. But and that was part of the fear factor. But you know what, if you're not if you're not like if it's not in your heart, no matter how much money you're making, it's it's not it's just not going to work. Like somehow you won't be able to hang on to the money, you won't be able to be responsible with it, because I always felt like uh, like this is not really, this is not my money, I haven't earned it, like it's the government paying me, which is silly. It's like, of course it was my money. I was very extremely well earned, you know what I mean? But I could never properly manage it or hang on to it. Like there was a block there, and it would just kind of always flow away from me. And then I would always be frustrated too that I was working so hard, and this is like the cap. I can't make any more than this unless I go into administration and work even harder. You know what I mean? And then, they're capped at like 120 or whatever, and that's it. Like there was no there was just no like when you have your own business and you're an entrepreneur, the sky's the limit. Like you can do anything, and it's not just so much about working harder, it's about creating something that's going to serve people better. You know what I mean? So I never felt like I could create that, like that thing or that service or whatever to serve my students better. It was always just, you were always kind of like, your salary's capped, what you can do as a teacher is capped. Like you feel sort of trapped in the system, right? So I would say if someone is thinking of leaving and you're worried about the finances, I totally get it because I lost sleep over it for many, many years. Um, saying, oh my God, what if I walk away? But you live once, right? So if you if you don't walk away, like you're never gonna know. You can always get another job, and maybe truthfully, for most teachers across North America, you can always get another job that's going to pay you the same, if not more, right? So don't worry about that. If it doesn't work out, you can always get another job. And if you want to leave teaching, you can start looking for other jobs now, and you can start building your resume. There's so many resources out there for teachers now about how to build their resume and transfer your skills into other careers. So I would say just start like with baby steps. And I know it's really scary, but just realize if you're being paralyzed by fear, like just acknowledge that and say, you know, I'm so scared to even think about this. And then just be kind to yourself and take it like really one step at a time. And if it takes you 10 years to get out, that takes you 10 years to get out. It's not a race, right? But just take the first step. That's my advice.
Yeah, that was awesome. There's a lot of advice in there, and I really love just the don't be afraid piece of that. There's so much fear, and it's just that limiting beliefs that we have. Teachers tend to put a lot of limiting beliefs on themselves. For as much as we preach growth mindset, that's a problem that we have is putting limiting beliefs on ourselves. And if I'm not mistaken, Ontario, Canada is also not a cheap place to live. So,
Oh, yeah, I should mention that. So teachers in New York City, from what I understand, when you take into the account the exchange rate, I was making the same. And the cost of living here and I live in a big city, is also like super, super high. So it's not like it's not like a house costs $20,000 here and we're living large. It's not like that at all. Like the cost of living is extremely high. And yeah, when you take into amount the exchange, is probably the same as what a teacher in New York City would make.
yeah. So if you're,
Thank
if
you for
you're
pointing that
wondering,
out.
if you're wondering, go look up like the price to buy a house in Ontario, and then you'll realize why they're making so much money over there. It's yeah, it's nothing compared to like here in Texas where I live. You can buy a house for like a good sized house for like $150,000. I don't
Oh
need to
my
make hundred
gosh.
thousand dollars here. It's you don't need to, right? So there's
Yeah.
big difference in housing costs and other costs as well. So just keep that in mind that teaching is generally underpaid everywhere, even if it sounds like a big number, just because it's compared to cost of living. Um, which is why side hustles are so powerful, because a side hustle allows you to really grow that income that you're making without limit. So that way you can just burst above that underpaid position you're in.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Good point.
I'm sure that a lot of teachers are feeling the way you did, which is like, I'm a teacher. All I know how to do is teach. I can't do anything else. But you also mentioned skills transfer. So how did your teaching, background contribute to your success as an entrepreneur beyond like just tutoring, right? Obviously tutoring and teaching are very similar skills. Did anything else about being a teacher help you become an entrepreneur?
Oh yeah, a lot did. And actually I have to tell you, tutoring and teaching are similar skills, but at the same time they're so different because as a tutor now, I can like niche right down into a very specific, well, first of all, I can design my own curriculum, which is amazing. I can design my own program, and I can serve like one very specific student and family, like that's a certain age, has certain needs, has certain like learning styles, is in a certain program at school. I can really focus on that one person. Whereas when I have a classroom of 30 kids, I have to focus on 30 different, totally different people. And I have to teach them like, math, language, science, drama, dance, gym, this, that, music. Like it's like everything, right? So you've got going from this chaos of everything So where you can just funnel it down to exactly what you want to do. So that's very, very different. But then in teaching, like I said, I was in special ed for many years, and the paperwork is like, oh my gosh, I'm sure it's the same. I'm sure it's the same around the world, but the paperwork is horrendous, and you do it on your own time. You're not, you don't have time to do it at school, and you're not paid to do it. So and then of course in running your own business, there's a lot of administrative tasks, as you can well imagine, as well, which I kind of equate in a way to that paperwork. So I think that it's helped me to just like have the stomach for it, for all the administrative tasks, and like learning to use this computer program and send out these invoices and input all this information and stuff. So even just to be able to like yeah, stomach that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing is when when I'm doing it for my own business, even those like really minuscule, boring little administrative tasks, I don't mind. I'm like actually happy to do them. And when I was doing it for the school, I would be so angry. I'd be like, oh my God, it's the weekend and I have to write all these IEPs or all these report cards or fill out all this paperwork. But when it's my own business, I don't mind. I'm like, oh, great. I can't wait to get working on that. So it's just kind of interesting. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of paperwork involved in having your own business. I don't know if there's any business where you can get around that. So, and as teachers, we have a lot of experience with paperwork. So I'd say that's one really transferable skill. And the other one is probably customer service, because as a teacher, well, I mean, you can be like the grumpy teacher that's like really, mean to everybody and not friendly to parents and stuff. But I don't know what kind of experience you're gonna have. But I mean, as a teacher, I was always like, greeting the parents and sending out the newsletter and like emailing them, all hours of the night and responding to their messages and all this stuff. And, like putting, decorating the classroom, make it so welcoming. So there's that element of customer service, I think, in teaching as well. And that's transferable for sure to your own business too. So those two things, I think.
That's huge. I think paperwork is unfortunately here to stay everywhere. So it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to do paperwork. And then customer service, I think that's big. And another thing that I think that people need to know about, being an entrepreneur, is that it's about managing, right? And if you can manage 30 students in one room, you can manage anything, right? So
Yeah.
you really can. If you are able to successfully navigate 30 students in a room, you can successfully navigate any type of management situation there. So that's another skill that I found transfers well to pretty much anything.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I think we've talked about pretty much everything there is about starting your own business. Do you have anything else you want to tell us about stepping away from education and starting your own business?
Um, just that it's really scary, and I think it's like it's normal to be scared about it. Like I said, for a decade I was terrified even to think about it, like even to let my mind go there. I was, never mind take any kind of action. I was terrified of that. So I think just it is scary, and it's natural that you're going to feel scared. And I think also that you need to think about maybe before you leave, think about how can you improve the situation, because one thing I'm very grateful for is that I left on a really good vibe. I was at a school that was wonderful. I love the staff, I love the students, I love the administrator, I love my teaching partner, I loved everything about that school. It was a really wonderful place to work, and I was able to make this decision. Even with that wonderful environment, I was still able to make this decision to walk away, because I knew, like, I just felt it in my heart that I had to do it. And I feel really good about that. Whereas if I had walked away from a really toxic environment where I felt like threatened and, you know, um, unsafe, then I probably, I don't know, it just would have been a different strategy. So if you can leave on a positive note, then you know that you really want to leave. So maybe before leaving, try to get yourself into a safe situation and into a positive situation, and experience teaching like from that perspective, from as a joyful, positive, fun, happy thing where you're working with people that you love and you're working with a great administrator. If you have an opportunity to experience like that, and then you still want to leave, then I would say go for it. But but maybe the first step, if you can, and everyone's situation is different, but the first step is to make sure you get yourself somewhere safe and somewhere, then, somewhere that you can really thrive, that's going to be supportive and positive for you. That would be my advice.
I love it. I always think that the first step is to try and make your own situation better before you just do something drastic. And I also just want to go back to the fear thing real quick, because that's huge. Fear is the number one thing that stops anyone from moving forward for anything. Fear just stops us moving forward. And if you're experiencing fear, I really want to recommend a book by Dale Carnegie. So he's the one that wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's his most famous book. But his other book is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And it's just, I was Mr. Worry about everything. I still like to worry. It's something I do in my spare time, is I worry about things. But that book helped me put worrying into perspective and really understand how to handle fear. And one of my favorite tips that he gives is ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? So you're terrified about quitting your job. What's the worst thing that can happen? You quit your job, you don't hack it, and you get another job. Right? We have a teacher shortage. It's not like you're going to quit your job and then no one is ever going to hire you ever again as a teacher. They're going to beg you to come back, right? So if you quit your job as a teacher, you can always find another job. I have a friend of mine who lost his job teaching due to a really lame circumstance in the middle of the year. It was like March. And he found another job within a week teaching in the middle of the school year, right? It's like they need teachers. No matter when it is, where you're doing, you can get a job as a teacher. Trust me, they need them. It might not be the best teaching position immediately, but you can always, move yourself into another spot later. So the worst that can happen if you quit your job is you get another one, right? So if that's been your block so far, there you go. That's a way to get past that. All right. With our last few minutes, I got 2 more questions for you, Kelly. What's your number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life?
Number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, I think just be really aware of your finances. And one thing that what was happening to me when I was teaching and I was unhappy, and I was wanting to leave, is I would find the money would just slip through my fingers. Like I had a bit of a shopping addiction. And I was like, and it was really hard for me um to stop that. And now that I've left, I don't have it anymore. So just, like, I don't know, there's these things that may seem like they're not related, but they are related. So think about, think about that. So look at how much, look at your spending and look at your spending habits, and ask yourself, is there anything like kind of questionable here that I'm doing? And, maybe try to get to the bottom of that and see why you're doing that. So I think just being aware of your finances and aware of your spending habits is really, really important.
Awesome. I love it. That is huge. All right. And then where can teachers get in contact with you?
The teachers can find me at my Facebook group, Tutor Hustle for Teachers, because I love tutoring so much, and I think it's a great side hustle for teachers. Or if you want to leave the classroom and become a full-time tutor, hopefully you can do that eventually too. But I think it's just such a wonderful experience to work, have the freedom to teach and to work one-to-one or in a small group with students. It's such an amazing experience as a teacher. So I want everyone to experience that if they want to. So that's why I started the Facebook group, Tutor Hustle for Teachers. You can find me there. You can find me at tutorhustleforteachers.com. And yeah, and that's where I am. So come and join me.
Well, thank you so much for having us on the podcast. I really having Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I really am glad that you were able to come on, and I hope some teachers come and hang out with you there at tutor hustleforteachers.com. And it was wonderful talking to you. And if you have liked this show, please come and give us a like, subscribe. Comments are great on YouTube. Reviews are great on the podcast platform of your choice. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Shaun. It was great to chat today.
If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.